Splatoon was probably my third favorite game of 2015, but had it been any other year, it may very well have taken gold. It has some of the most delightful gameplay I've ever experienced, with a world brimming with charisma, a striking and memorable art style that brings me right back to the days of listening to Blink-182's First Date on the radio while watching Nickelodeon's Gas, and what might be the freshest take, haha get it, on the shooter genre in nearly a decade, with its unique turf control focus. What might impress me most about it, though, is the fact that it uses the Wii U Gamepad so strongly that it makes every other console shooter feel a little behind the times for me. Splatoon was able to take a controller that developers had struggled with for years and brilliantly brought out its potential, specifically with its gyroscope and its touchscreen. But before I talk about the gyroscope, I feel there's something I should make clear. I love competitive shooters. I'm not 360 no-scope, MLG, Illuminati confirmed smoke weed every day or anything, but I do love them. I played a decent amount of Quake as a kid, I have over 250 hours in Team Fortress 2, and Overwatch is currently devouring my life as we speak, but I just cannot play them on consoles. The inherent lack of immediate response that comes with analog stick controls compared to mouse and keyboard makes every moment feel like a frustrating nightmare with my muscles wanting to react far faster than the gamepad will allow me to. I wish this weren't the case, but mouse and keyboard has spoiled me. As such, while I probably would really enjoy playing some Gears of War or Uncharted multiplayer, I just can't find it anything but a grind. In spite of this though, I was able to put roughly 60 hours into Splatoon multiplayer, played it regularly with my friends, and even made an account on Squidboards. But that might have been lost on me if it weren't for the fact that Splatoon has what might be the best controls for a competitive console shooter ever. For the uninitiated, this is how it works. You use the left analog stick to move your character, the right analog stick to rotate your character, and then use the gyroscope in the gamepad to aim. This is admittedly a little unwieldy at first, but as you get used to it, you will most likely settle into a pattern of using the right analog stick to make big camera movements, and then using the gyroscope for moments of fine reactionary aiming. This isn't as fluid as using mouse and keyboard to be sure, but I found it to be a more than admirable solution. It gave me the twitch reaction I need to find these kinds of games satisfying, and there's no reason we couldn't be seeing this in more games, even outside of the Wii U. The DualShock 4 does have a built-in gyroscope, and I can only imagine how good these controls would feel in a game like Ratchet & Clank. And it does all of this without sacrificing the classic analog stick controls. After all, if you really don't like the gyro controls, you can just turn them off. Like, can you imagine how frustrating it would be to have gyro controls forced on you against your will? Especially while, like, taking control of the camera away from you or something like that. Like, how terrible would that be? How terrible would that be? Oh my god. And I admit, it's not a flawless solution. It's still not the one-to-one response I'm looking for, and an FPS game using these kinds of controls would probably serve only to make you sick. And yes, I freely admit, they may not be for everyone. There was definitely a fair share of dissenting opinions about these controls when they first came out. But if I were given the option to aim in such a tight and responsive way more often, I could see it serving to make my time as Nathan Drake just a little bit more enjoyable, and would definitely make my time as a cog less frustrating. Then there's the touchscreen. Currently, most Wii U games seem to use it as either a remote play device, as is the case with Bayonetta 2 and Super Mario 3D World, or as a way to display certain kinds of non-essential information, such as Super Smash Bros., with it showing the percentage on the bottom screen. And these aren't the worst uses in the world for it, especially in the case of remote play if you're someone who lives in a household where you have to share the TV. However, it still feels like the second screen isn't being properly harnessed. And Nintendo really wants this thing to be properly harnessed. God bless Nintendo's little heart. They have tried just so hard to make this thing unique. To make it into something that can create games that just could not exist somewhere else. Which is especially frustrating because with Splatoon, they kind of already did it. That might be a bit of an exaggeration, but let me explain. Once again, for the uninitiated, the way it works is mid-game, the screen displays the map complete with the positions of friendlies, and tapping on one of them allows you to immediately teleport to a friendly position. And the touchscreen can be used to allow for the rapid deployment of an ever-useful ink strike, which is basically a squid-based ICBM, which might be the game's best special power. And it also gives you a series of mini-games to play while you're waiting for matchmaking to do its job. Is it the most creative use? Probably not. Is it far and away the most practical use? Most likely. The closest competition I can think of is Wind Waker's use of the touchpad to allow for quick menu navigation that made the experience of switching items buttery smooth. Because currently I think the best we can expect from it is basically the same thing we can expect from the gyroscope, to augment and speed up more traditional actions rather than bringing wholly new ones to the table. It might not be the sexiest use in the world, but for my money, convenience trumps needless innovation every time. However, this doesn't mean we couldn't see games that sport a creative use of the touchpad and the second screen. I know there are some great games that could be made using the touchscreen. Hell, there are probably some great games waiting to be made that ask you to split your attention between the touchscreen and the TV. Like, off the top of my head, I'd be really interested in a tower defense FPS game like Sanctum on Wii U. Place your towers down using the gamepad, then shoot on the TV. Could be cool. Maybe some more games like Kirby and the Rainbow Curse or Zombie U. But unless someone is really willing to commit to the idea with a game built from the ground up to support it, and not just violently shoehorn the gyro and the touchscreen into a game where it doesn't belong, it might just be nice to stick to some really cool quality of life improvements. And there's nothing wrong with that. The NX seems to be right around the corner, and all evidence seems to point towards it having a controller that boasts both of these features. While Nintendo kind of screwed the pooch getting the Wii U's gamepad to be what they wanted it to be, it doesn't have to be this way. And if Nintendo uses Splatoon as one of their roadmaps on how to pull it off correctly, then they just might get me excited about it again. Oh hey, gyro controls can totally work on an FPS game. Sick. Man, the things you learn at 3 in the morning as you finish editing.